Contact Energy's culture transformation has been lauded far and wide, has been hugely successful. You moved from what I would call a reactionary, compliance-driven culture to one which is a generative one where it's seen as just the way things are done around here. In fact, one of your employees summed it up. They said, it's a far less formal approach, but it's leading to changes that are far more meaningful. So what tips would you give to other senior leaders trying to lead culture change, whether that be in safety or anything else?
I would say the first and most important thing that you'd need to do is actually find out for yourself what the culture is currently, and rely on multiple inputs for that. Get lots of data, and in my mind data is, you know, you might have some culture survey data, but actually getting out and talking to people was the best thing that I did. I talked to leaders, I talked to senior leaders, I talked to technicians, I talked to people, you know, at what we call the sharp end, doing the work day to day. If you thought about, you know, health and safety generally, so I didn't even start with culture, I just said if you think about how this, you know, part of the business is working, and 0 was rubbish, couldn't get any worse. 10 was actually you couldn't improve it, it's just fantastic. Where would you score it? And in the main, most people scored it at about 6 or 7 out of 10. And all the good stuff was, yes, we've got some, you know, good systems and good processes, but actually the bits holding us back from 10 out of 10 were things like, we're not really leading this as well as we could be. When something goes wrong, we're quite fearful. We don't want to make mistakes, so then things get covered up and don't filter their way up the top. We had completely overcomplicated things. So the sort of, you know, sitting in head office, writing what you thought was helpful guidance for the sharp end, actually doing the work wasn't working, because instead of them finding it helpful, they just found it a bureaucratic pain, and it didn't help there. They spent more time on the paperwork than they did on actually planning and doing the work. So collecting a lot of that information was really helpful, and then bringing it back to the senior leadership team was another really important bit. Like how I framed that up was important, because it's quite confronting to get data that says actually how we intend things to be is not actually how things are felt. So I'd say get out, talk to people, frame up a story, don't judge, and yeah, think about intent versus felt impact, and start small. We won an award with Deloitte, and it was around our safety culture journey, and we called it Think Big, Start Small. So I love that. That would be the other advice, is just start small. Is pulling at the threads of the culture, and when you pull at the threads, I got pushback, and it's tempting when you get pushback to let them shut the door, but I got some great advice of actually, you've opened the door, keep a wedge in the door and don't let it shut, and that, I guess, again goes with the start small. It was quite confronting for leaders, so not trying to solve it all in one 2-hour meeting was the realistic and sort of pragmatic option, but keeping pulling at those threads that actually there is something in here, and what I found was that persistence and courage, if I'm honest. It did require some courage, because I was the one delivering the message, and so there was, you know, they got mad at me, but they weren't really mad at me, they were mad at themselves, because they had really great intent, and now they had data that said it's not really landing in the way that you want it to.